Welcome to the Quantum Healthy podcast. Today we have Heather Crimson, who we're very excited to have with us. A lot of things come up with when I think of Heather Crimson. She's a colleague, she's a friend, she's an inspiration. I think of her as an Instagram warrior. She's my homeopathy study buddy. She's strong, she's bold, she's truth-seeking, she's decentralized, she's a therapy pioneer in my mind. She's very caring. She has the courage of conviction to tell the truth with mental health. And I think the obvious piece that a lot of us see, but she's highlighted for us that's missing. She's a paradigm shifter and she truly embodies her truth. So I'm going to ask Heather, we're going to do something different. I'm going to ask Heather to actually introduce herself and give us her own version of her biography, if you could do that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Laura, for that really gracious introduction. And hi, Andeea. It's so great to be here with you, two lovely ladies. And I mean, high accolades to both of you, too. I mean, both of your stories and just knowing you guys and your energy is what I'm all about. So I really appreciate the invite and I'm really glad to be here. So, the bio, where to start? Oh my gosh. I feel like my whole life, you guys, if I wanted to sum it up, has been a health journey, right? And so health, I think we get to hear that word all the time. We throw it around, but what is that really? I think today my definition of health would be like how you are embodying your own authentic self. For some reason, I want to say your native self. I don't know why I just like that word. And it's how do you know yourself? It's not really about what you do, that stems from how you know yourself. And so I feel like I didn't really know myself because I came from a family that was highly addicted with my nuclear family and severe drug addiction. And so there's a lot of trauma there, always, right? There's always trauma, there's drama, there's all the things. And I would get these really interesting contrasting experiences of being with my mom, for example, and then going to my grandparents all the time because she would come in like, okay, you're gonna go to your grandparents so she could do her thing. And it was like chaos and scary and always like no predictability, no structure. And then I'd go to grandparents' house and it's like, oh, it's like serious and at one and then the other one was not as serious, but like we have these rules. And I was just like, what? So I had to learn all three different cultures, basically, right? Three different family systems. And so I realized early on that I wanted that sense of felt safety in my body, but I wasn't getting that with my mom. Bless her heart. I'm not blaming anyone. It's like she had so much trauma, right? This is just a multi-generational transmission process. And I have to be honest, like I did not want to define my life around trauma in the last like 10 years. I'm like, I'm moving away from that because I think there's a point at which it kind of, it colors everything. And then you're sort of defining yourself by that. And I don't want that anymore. But it's an integral part of my story and it has shaped who I am and has been really a big catalyst in my health seeking journey. Because what happens with trauma is you get so disconnected from yourself, right? Who am I? Because you get your sense of self from what your caregivers reflect back to you. That is the attachment experience. That is the primal essence of attachment. I think it's all quantum, ladies. It's like there's constant energetic, right? Things happening, exchanges. There's the eye gazing with the infant. There's all of the quantum like hormonal stuff happening. I mean, it's just so rich, right? There's many, many layers. I'm sure there's so much we don't even know about. It's
So
not
you're
just
saying
about,
no, you didn't get, or someone
I did
with
not
trauma,
get consistent,
eye gazing,
safe
safe,
parenting with
safe
my
signals.
mom. Dad wasn't even in the picture. He's not even in the
Gosh.
picture. So it was mom doing the best she could, having me just barely turning 17. You get the point, right? Well, I'm born in 69. So, back in the day. And I realized that like who I am has been seeking myself and how to be safe in my own body, how to be safe being able to know what I need, how to be able to speak my truth and set boundaries. Like I wasn't able to do any of that stuff early on. It was more like, what am I supposed to do? You look outside of yourself, right? Because I didn't know. And I wasn't getting like I got some from my dad's mom, but I wasn't with her all the time. Like she was my main sort of mentor. But it was like, okay, I get a little snippet here and there. And I kind of felt like I was on my own because literally I was on my own a lot. I spent a lot of hours alone. And then I was alone taking care of an infant, who was my brother. And so the level of terror in my body was so intense of this frozenness, right? There's fight or flight or freeze in the sympathetic nervous system. Okay. So I was stuck in the freeze mode for most of my life. And then when I wasn't in freeze mode, I was either in fight or flight. Like I was not in what we call the window of tolerance that often because there was so much dense, compacted terror in my body. And so I just did like, oh, I'm going to be an English teacher because that's what my high school English teacher who was nice to me did, right? Like that's how I would operate my life. Oh, now I'm going to, learn Spanish because that seems like a great idea. And I love this Latino culture. And that was great. Or Mexico and all the things. But it's like, what do I really want? Like I couldn't connect with myself. So when we're so disconnected from our core, yes, we're looking out all the time and there's no sense of inner safety. So let's see, where do I want to go with this? As far as quantum biology goes, eventually this stress led to me having more issues. So I had the gut issues. Duh.
I-
When you have a lot of trauma, you're going to have some kind of gut issues, right? When there's that level of fear and you're holding yourself and there's like all of this is tense all the time, right? Like I could
So leaky gut.
yeah, I had all the things, leaky gut, irritable bowel, called all the things. I could get colitis if I didn't eat right, I'm just a lot of inflammation.
Yeah.
And
Inflammation.
so I would do things like I got to prove myself. It was a lot about that. Like I got to prove that I'm a good enough person to be safe. Like that's the level of trauma that I had. Right. And I've had family members even comment, like, I can't even believe you're alive. Oh, well, thanks. That's so helpful. Where were you when things were bad? Right. And so then I would think, oh yeah, maybe, it really was that bad. Cause what do? We try to push it away. We try to just move on. We don't want to deal with all that. And I tried, like I saw therapists on and off, but the neglect is the hardest kind of trauma to treat, right? Because there's a void. There's nothing to go in and do. You have to bring in safe, imagining bringing in safe other people. So that's an ongoing process for me. So what do? I go to school and then I be a teacher. That didn't work out. I was too young. I was look like super young and I didn't have the energy and the strength to manage a classroom. So thank God I never got hired full time. I just did like substitute teaching and summer jobs. Then I went back to school to be a counselor. I'm like, this is great. I love connecting one-on-one with the kids in the class.
Mm.
That feels more manageable to me. And I want to help people, right? I did have that longing because I wanted help too, of course. All therapists are on their own healing journey, just like everyone else, right? But we're choosing that as our whole focus for our
Mhm.
career. So I did that. It was amazing. I got a very multicultural program, super cool educators who were great mentors to me. And then I did that for the last whatever. So I started in 90, I don't remember, 98 or something when I went back to grad school. And that was lovely. I got licensed, marriage and family therapist, still have my license, even though I'm not really practicing that much now. And I was just, the stability that I had always wanted, you guys, was what I really needed, right? Everything that's happening to us is happening for a reason and for our best and highest good. Like I truly believe that now. But I
Yeah.
was trained in the traditional sense. And I was like, oh, energy work, that's not real. And I was so ignorant, like I had no idea, right? I was super biased. So like, this is how we do things. And we have to do the whole protocol just perfectly, right? And my dream was to have a private practice. So I worked for the county mental health with children in a jail, in a locked facility. Like it was the worst thing ever.
Where are you living? Just to put us in time and space. Where are you living at this
Well, I'll
point?
get there because then I was living in Monterey County. So
Okay.
in Central Coast of California on the ocean, thank goodness, because it was really hard. Like I was super depressed. So I was indoors all the time, working
Mm.
with a lot of traumatized, young people with very unsupportive, unethical staff, a horrible system. Like I don't ever recommend working for the government in any way regarding mental health or anything else actually. But so I made it out of there as quickly as I could to get my hours. And then I got licensed and then I started to work part-time as a therapist. So I developed that business over the last, 15 years, eventually working up to doing somatic trauma work and specializing also in doing attachment-based work with couples with emotionally focused therapy developed by Sue Johnson, who was incredible.
Who you, by the way, you just told us before we started recording that she just passed away.
Yep.
And you can you tell us what happened when you heard that news?
Yeah, I was really taken aback because I was really had a lot of emotion come up and
Yeah.
I just grieved, for 5 or 10 minutes. I was also angry because she had cancer and I didn't know what the cause of that was, but I had my, assumptions and whatnot.
Mm,
So, yeah. So I just had to be with that. And because she was really impactful in my own personal journey of developing a secure attachment with myself because it's like
oh,
there's that piece and then there's the quantum biology. So those two
right.
couple have been instrumental in me being able to feel like I'm not in constant state of reactivity, that I'm not a victim to my circumstances, that I actually have agency and that I know how to really nourish myself. So, yeah. So Laura, what happened was is I was doing therapy and then I had all these issues with my relationship and it was super stressful. And then I had all these health issues and then I crashed with chronic fatigue and that started in
Oh,
around 2011. So
okay.
I've literally been recovering from that ever since. And I found quantum biology by in a marketing program I was in for high ticket offers for coaching. I was doing a relationship offer then. And I found this couple that was actually offering a program for chronic fatigue. I invested a whole lot of money in their high ticket program. And I realized right away, I'm like, oh my goodness. So I had never even heard of circadian stuff. I was like, this is the missing piece, right? And so then I started to do all the things. I was like, I'm doing it all, sunrise, sunset, da da da. So I was very consistent, got those smart meters off the house. I did everything that they suggested, which they did include supplements. I'm like, whatever, I didn't know then about that piece of it, but I did all the things and I started to get better. So consistently, and some things improved right away, like my energy level, but some things, of course, took a little while because
Took longer.
I was so deteriorated, right?
Well, and it took you a while to get there, right? I always tell people, yes, sometimes we get overnight improvements, but you got to also consider how long have you been sick?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, there's just so, I mean, well, and to be honest with you guys, like I had a consultation with Carrie Bennett, and she says, oh, you definitely have mitochondrial damage from all the early trauma. So that's something interesting that
Oh,
I've been sitting with since that meeting with her about a year ago now, I think it was, is that, and I have a mentor who's a spiritual mentor, and she said to me one time, because I met her in that same marketing training that found these quantum practitioners who were both MDs. They just chose not to get licensed, which I thought was really smart. And
wow. They
so,
were ahead of their time.
mhm,
Yeah.
my spiritual mentor said, "You're really like a flower, like an orchid, and you have to be treated with special care." I thought, okay, well, I guess I am. I always want to be like really strong and I'm gonna, be this like athlete. It just never would work for me. I could only have so much stress on my body before then it would start to
Mm,
backfire. So that's how like that's part of our spiritual journey though. It's like what have I experienced in life? Like why was I put in this position? And it's about that surrender piece, right? Like I have to honor my body and its
mm.
capacities or if my ego decides like what I used to do is like, no, I'm the president of this local therapist chapter and I got to do all these things. Well, then that backfired, right? And I had the chronic fatigue. That was just part of it. But all those things came together with the stressors of the relationship and the job and the licensing. So let's
We're
see.
not invincible, hey, right?
I know. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have to honor my body. And so I want to come back full circle to this journey that I've had, you guys, where I started to become okay. So practicing quantum biology, more energy, right? More connection to
So,
nature.
so just before you go to the improvements, just can you just outline, okay, just in terms of sunlight, blue light, non-native EMFs, what kind of things were you doing? What
To
did
help
a day
myself.
look like? Yeah, what did
Oh,
a
well, I
typical
would
day look
watch the
like?
sunrise every single day. I would
Okay.
ground every single day, do some earthing. And
How'd you do that? Just barefoot in the
oh yeah.
grass or sand?
Mhm. Yep.
Nice.
Barefoot on the grass or the dirt. And then I would, I'm usually wearing these during the day, but there's such a glare. Like I don't wear them when there's too much of a glare. And then I would block all artificial light at night. It wasn't perfect because my partner at the time, and he was never into any of it. So, and I hear that a lot with, quantum ladies. It's like, okay, well, there's a thing. And so I did
I'll
the
just I'll just share on that because you talked about earthing. There's a movie, I don't know if it's on Netflix or how my husband found it, but the other night he's like, "Laura, you want to watch this? It's called The Earthing Movie." And I said, "Yeah, definitely want to watch this." So we
Oh.
watched half of it, and now he doesn't think I'm such a freak for buying earthing shoes and trying to go barefoot and
I love
always,
it. You
yeah,
got validation, Laura. He's
I
like,
got a little
people
validation.
do these things,
It's
not just
one
my
step.
wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to like disparage anyone. Like my partner used to at the time, once in a while would, come out and watch sunrise, but it wasn't like I think it was more just a novelty for him. So,
Mhm.
but I would, and then I would try to manage my stress better. Because I sought out a spiritual mentor too. I've been in a women's community for the last 3 years.
Beautiful.
That really helped me to feel nurtured and nourished. And she talks, Jenny Glick is her name. She's amazing.
Yes.
She talks a lot about like pleasure, not necessarily sexually, but how do we pursue pleasure and these practices that help nourish us, that feel good, so that we're not always having to go and take care of others and always be in this stress mode, right? There's always something to worry about, there's always something to do, and we never really attend to our bodies and our own sense of safety inside. And that's a big focus of mine that I want to further develop for myself, but also for my coaching clients. Because what I realized also with quantum biology is about the cell danger response, that our mitochondria are basically sensors of safety, right? And our exclusion zone water too, right? It's literally patterning itself based on the energy frequencies that you're experiencing either around you or in your mind and
It's an
whatnot.
antenna, right?
It's an antenna.
Yeah.
So what I was thinking is that my whole body was just the whole thing, the water, the cells were always in a danger response. Like it's
Response.
always like it's not safe. Because when
Mhm.
you grow up with a lot of attachment trauma, when those who were supposed to care for you didn't, then there's all these layers of like, well, is this person safe? Is that person safe? Well, is it safe to do it? I mean, every little thing, right? It's exhausting. And so your energy is depleted. Also, I have this idea now. I know I'm not the only one, but if our body is sensing these things and our exclusion zone water is patterning itself based on what the frequencies that it's reading are, that is what I think emanates out into the ether, which is the so-called empty space all around us, and is attracting back and reflecting back to us what we are experiencing. So what does that mean? That's the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like if I'm scared, that's just broadcasting around me. Well, now something scary is going to happen, even if it's some little thing, right? And so that's how I think this thing happens, where when people say like, oh, you can change your reality and all, well, Dispenza and all those folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's probably how that happens. I
Mhm.
mean, we're communicating with all energy that is in the moment. And there's only this moment, right? And so it's always happening that way. Because what happens is when I have more energy because I'm doing the quantum practices, I start to think differently, right? Because I have energy. This goes into the mental health piece. This is how I think the mental health piece works. So when we have energy to run our body's processes, yes, our body feels safer. Our perception is more accurate based on, well, perception is perception, but you know what I mean. And we have better discernment. Is this good for me or not good for me? Is this feeling safe or not safe? We're listening to our bodies more. That's a big one. Because again, it's even people who don't think they have a lot of trauma, and they probably don't compared to what I went through, they're still not really in their bodies, right? They're in their heads and they're looking outside of themselves. They're not listening to their body's cues, the sensations of emotion, of the all the visceral knowing that comes in to inform us of what we really want and don't want and need and so forth. So the more energy that I had and the more I started to calm down, the more clearly I could see how things that I had chosen and manifested in my life were not working for me. But stubborn me was like, well, I'll try to make it work. I'll go to therapy. And
Yeah.
so that's what we do. It's like we get attached. That's understandable, because another part of this process has been developing or engendering so much grace and compassion for myself
Oh, I love that.
to work on the shame piece because there's always a lot of shame around trauma and you have to address that, right? And that's like you get hijacked in your body from that. So I would start years ago and even in somatic trauma trainings, like I would notice I'd turn red and this and that, or I'd try to speak, right? Boom, shame would come up. I would turn red, which was way worse when I wasn't tan, right? Was like, oh my God, it's so obvious and I'm embarrassed right now. It's like, oh, well, I just had to get over that. And that was part of the healing of the shame, right? It's like, I'm human for God's sakes. Oh,
Mhm.
well, right? And so all these threads came together. So the mental emotional piece, how do I actually have a good mood? Well, I take care of my body's needs for energy, right? I pay attention to the signs I need for rest. We override everything. We don't go to the bathroom. We try to wait to pee. That's what I mean. Many people do these things. We don't go to bed when we're tired at 8 o'clock. Well, that's too early. So we stay up till 11. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I know, Laura.
Guilty. Do you see the shame coming up through my cheeks?
Oh, but
Not
all like
always.
I don't like this what this person's saying, but I don't say anything. So I then therefore am storing that energy, the emotional energy in my body, and I can't get it out. So we just accumulate all of this stagnation, whether it's emotional or whatever, in our bodies, and then that clouds our discernment. So let me just check in with my notes. Like I have so much I want to say. This is so
Oh, I
exciting.
know. I love that you're sharing all this. Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Is
I
it
kind
making
of
sense to both of you?
yeah, yeah. Look, it's so interesting to see how you're looking at your life and how you had all this programming for the danger response. And now you're actually investing in Heather, to unprogram all of that. And, I kind of like I've heard you in another podcast mention Peter Levine and his work. Maybe you can tell me the name of the book, but I think it has a zebra on the cover, and it's the scientist that's talking about what I remember from a long time ago, that, the zebra will freeze. He gets the cell danger response, if he sees a lion, and will freeze, but if they come out of it and they don't get eaten, they just move on, like they don't embody that, and they're able to, and it seems like you're gonna be that zebra, all this work you're doing, and adding the quantum biology and then all of this other spiritual, stuff you've gone out of your way to invest in, Heather, and exciting. Oh my gosh, because in the end, I know that you're not just doing this. Maybe there's a selfish piece and you're doing this for you, but I also know and definitely want to bring out here in this interview how you're giving that back and sharing it for more women. So maybe I'll jump to that now.
Well, I just had
But
one more piece I wanted to talk about. Are we running out of time?
yeah, no, we got lots of time. We're good. Lots of
Well,
time.
Laura, the thing is that somatic experiencing, it's Peter Levine, Waking the Tiger is one of his famous books.
Waking the tiger. Okay.
And that's those stress hormones that like they're so, pervasive in the body. And then when danger's gone, then they release through this pronking. So there'll be a lot of movement, even have
Right.
shaking in people, but it's
Yes.
releasing all of that in the moment frozenness, if that's what
Right.
happened, right? They weren't
Right.
able to get away and they're like, so then you have to release that. Or you go into shutdown mode, which is dorsal vagal, which is like you're just not online, you're not conscious in that moment to avoid so you're not awake when you get killed or whatever. But if you didn't
Right.
get killed,
Right.
then you're going to release all those stress hormones. So um,
Right.
now your second part was how I'm giving back, and you,
Well, yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I've got so many questions for you. Okay, let's go back to just you talked about gut issues, and I'm a I call myself a quantum nutritionist. So Andeea, you may know this, but Heather and I actually were homeopathy study buddies, and we did get to be housemates at Heather Shepherd's retreat, which was like incredible experience. And so, I know just over the last 2 years we've spent together studying. Maybe it was at the retreat, but we do have, I think, something in common, which is histamine issues. And I feel like you have a newer understanding of histamine. Is it, can you explain like, what is the trigger? Is it just the food? Is it shame? Or is it a water issue? Is it a sunlight issue? I feel like you've studied under Carrie Bennett a little deeper than the rest of us. And can you Can you
Well,
talk about what
I don't
histamine is?
necessarily have the science memorized because that's not really my, like,
No,
that's not my forte, but I can tell you my current understanding of it, Laura,
understanding. That's all we want.
is
That's right.
that so mine was a predisposed right from the trauma. So there's
Yes.
an overreactivity in my nervous system to things because it's always like hypervigilance, right? Like, even if I'm not aware of it at all. So there's this tendency to overreact to any threat, whether it's a tone of voice or an allergen or peanut butter, whatever, or tomatoes. So there's this overreactivity. I think part of it is that the gut lining and functioning was compromised from so much frozenness, right? There's that. And the other piece is definitely sunlight deficiency growing up in Washington State. Like, I was never out there with my belly in the sun hardly ever. I was indoors most of my childhood. There was little summers, short periods of time that I would be outside. So, and I know there's plenty of people who grew up in northern latitudes who don't have that problem. I think it's just the combination of things that were happening for me, right? So all of those things combined, plus then just because I didn't have a histamine issue that I knew as histamine. Well, that came later. It first manifested when my chronic fatigue was at its worst, right? And I could literally know things with histamine, but I didn't know that's what it was. So I would be doing 3-day bone broth and thinking I was going to heal, and I would just feel worse and worse and worse. Finally, after a while, I figured out what it was, or somebody helped me figure it out. And then I started avoiding all the histamine foods, and things were better.
Mhm.
Because I was so miserable, I was resorting to pharmaceuticals because I could literally not sleep for months. And
Oh, so
my
it affected your in sleep. It affected your
Oh
sleep.
God, yes. It still will if I
Um,
overdo it. Yeah, I don't feel as tired because I'm doing so many other things to help fortify me, right, and nourish my mitochondria. But
mhm.
it definitely for me was something that made me feel anxious, itchy, and red. Sometimes still have a little bit here, and also would not sleep well. It's like you're kind of wired but tired and you're half asleep all night. It's horrible. It feels like torture.
Yeah,
So
that's me on caffeine. Yeah.
and I used to never be able to do caffeine. I don't do it that much now, but it would make me sick. Now my histamine, especially because I've just recently moved and I'm in a higher UVB place because I'm almost at 3,000 feet and it's like really sunny and
Oh,
very, very
great.
sunny most of the year. And so, but I've only been here 3 weeks. But when I lived in Mexico for several months, 4 years ago, I had no histamine issues because I was at high UVB was like, I don't know, 12 or something, 13. And I was out every day. And I could eat anything. I could eat the fish, the chocolate, all the things that I wanted to with no issues. And I thought,
That's so telling, right? That's so telling. It's not just like the some people would say, well, is it just because you were less stressed?
well,
Yeah,
that's part of
sure.
it.
It's
Well,
part of it.
actually, I was pretty stressed down there because there was some stuff going on personally, relationship wise. So I was very stressed. It was really just the sunlight.
That's so interesting.
I
And
couldn't
sunlight
get
on your
back.
belly,
Oh yeah,
sunlight,
every day.
which
Yeah,
is UVB, infrared,
infrared,
UVA.
and I'd be out in the morning for the UVA, all the different, frequencies. So it really helped me a lot.
Can I
Um,
ask, did you have any histamine issues with citrus? Lemons, limes,
yeah,
oranges?
because citrus is a histamine liberator, and so I can't eat too much citrus either.
That's one of my biggest ones. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And for me, it manifests in my bladder with
Okay,
bladder urgency and frequency.
okay.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
look at histamine also as, or gut issues rather, which ties in with histamine
Mm,
for me as, here's the thing. Here's the thing. It's about the safety, Laura. Can I take in nourishment, love? It's not just food. I mean, mainly
right.
it's love. Can I love myself so that I start to feel safe and secure in my body so that I'm
Mm,
not overreacting to things? That's what I think it is. I think honestly, like I understand there's a lot of negative impact from our lifestyle regarding non-native EMFs, lack of sunlight, and all those things. But I think that once those are addressed, if you still have issues, the place that I've gotten to now in my understanding of health is that it's going to be unaddressed emotional in the body, unaddressed emotions in the body. That
yes.
will continue to, especially in chronic health problems that people have, and they jump from person to person to person. They're always trying all these different things. There's most likely, and you know this from the homeopathy, Laura, there's most likely suppressed emotions or
Hmm.
an unaddressed emotional issue or trauma that you're carrying around in your physiology that will undermine your body's all the
Healing.
things. I'm
right?
healing the energy, all of the things.
Yeah.
So that's really my focus now is how to basically address, I mean, not necessarily chronic issues, but somebody who wants to be able to have a more joyous experience in life, to be able to play. Some people can't play. Like I've had many clients who are like, no, I have to be serious. And that's how I used to be. Right. I mean, I would play once in a while, but it was like, oh, it's always like it's hard and it's struggle and I have to work hard. You know what I mean? That whole mentality that we've been indoctrinated.
I grew up with that, with the military
Exactly.
dad, work first and play, and even just the military. We worked hard, but we played hard. That's luckily we had that. Like,
Good.
the idea was we did laugh and we did play. So we did get instilled that, but I think I've carried it further where I'm never done work. I can only
Exactly.
play when work is done. Where my husband, my spouse, he's amazing. He prioritizes play in his life, and it shows in his health, you
This
know?
reminds me of something you said earlier, Laura, about being selfish. I think selfishness, when it's about your own personal growth, is positive. I think that's a good thing, especially for women. Because for
Mhm.
some reason, for women, like, see, like your
Yeah.
husband, it's like, no, this is my time. I'm going to go, whatever I do, golf, blah, 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 go hang out with the guys,
Mhm.
and they're fine. Like, it's no big deal. Oh my God, forbid that we prioritize our own, you know, space for ourselves. Like, what is that? Because we've been like, part of
It's
it's natural. We want to take care of others. Like,
yes.
that's what women do.
Yep.
And when though do we start to recognize, okay, well, I'm becoming depleted. I'm malnourished over here because I don't do the things that I love. I don't do whatever it is, creativity. I don't take time to do nothing. I don't hang out with my girlfriends. I don't go away by myself, whatever it is that you want to do.
I always tell my friends I'm a terrible girlfriend because I don't follow up. I want to be with them. I love all my girlfriends, including these ones on the screen here, but it's prioritizing. Always prioritize cleaning the house, getting my work done, family, supporting family, dogs, whatever first. Yeah,
Well, there's
I
that
hear you.
conditioning, right? That brings you a sense of safety and familiarity. Like, I get it. I like to be organized and have everything in place too.
Mhm.
But if we're always doing that, that's what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
right? It's like, when do we actually get to turn off and just literally be? And pleasure is important. And I think in our society, it's really become difficult because, well, Andeea, it's like that. When is it like, oh, you're just indulgent and oh, this is an addictive quality. Okay, well, that's the discernment again. It's like, no,
right.
this is
Yeah,
what feels good to me and it actually makes me feel better. It's not something that's a problem, right? Or that I can't live without, or all these other things.
Right.
But, it can be a little tricky. What do you think about that?
Well, my first thought was, well, as long as it's not impinging on your life, like if you're enjoying something and you start to do it every single day and you start canceling plans or calling into work or something like this, of course, then it starts to go into that addiction realm, right? Because many people have cross addictions and all sorts of things. But yeah, and also in recovery, like a lot of people will say, "Oh, this is a time to be selfish," and you just spoke to that so beautifully, that it is a positive thing when it has to do with your health and the bettering of yourself. And yeah, and earlier you also said something that really hit me, and it was about how you said something like that you're moving away from the trauma and speaking to that. And one of the things that yeah, as I learn about water and things like that, I'm trying not to cuss. I'm trying to I know that I've addressed my trauma. I know that I've done therapy. I'm doing energy work. I know I'm doing the good things. And I don't want to continue to focus on that, because then for me, what happens is I continue to live in that story, and I'm rewriting my story. I'm not sitting in the, oh, this happened to me. Now I'm in this healing. And it's the same thing when I talk about recovery versus recovered. It's like, we in recovery forever? Are we healing ourselves forever? Are we broken, constantly broken, and trying to find something outside of ourselves so we can feel good inside? And it's like, no, we need to go inside. We need to listen to our bodies, use our intuition to heal ourselves, and we will get recovered. We don't need to constantly. That's just little bit of part of my journey and just some of my thoughts since you've been sharing. And man, this is a wonderful. And I relate to a lot of pieces of your story. So
Yes,
mm,
I love that. It's like we decide what is true for us. Yes. based on our connection to our own truth and our higher self. And
Mm-hmm.
you get to write your own story. That's healthy. That's called healthy self-attachment, right? Because it's a narrative that I forget what we call it exactly, but it's a cohesive narrative that makes sense to you because we're meaning making creatures, right? We're going to make meaning. Laura, when you asked about the animals, it's like they don't get stuck in trauma because they're not making a lot of meanings out of it. Oh, that's bad. It shouldn't have happened to me. Oh my God, da, 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 the world is not a safe place. Like we're making meaning constantly. And if we're not aware
Yeah.
of that, right? Like you're saying, Andeea, what your story that you're telling yourself or how you're talking to yourself or how, and I need to work on the cussing thing too.
Actually, I came up with a quote. I'm gonna share it with you guys. Potty mouth pollutes your water. How do you like that? Maybe
That's
start a
good.
movement.
I like it. But it's true. Like you see Veda Austin's work, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to be careful.
Yeah, or Dr. Emoto. Yeah, both of them.
Yes, exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
so when I'm saying the F word, what is that imprinting on my body? Especially when, people say the the F word or any swear word, and can be different meaning behind that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It can be like they're pissed. It could be like a good thing, like, depending on that emotion behind
They're
it.
trying to be funny.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, or what have you. So just that intentionality that we put into our water when we're drinking it. And
Mm.
we need to do that with just life, the things when we speak, when we're thinking. I'm just starting to, do a lot of work on myself energy wise and realizing that it's all about the beliefs I'm placing on things, the story I'm telling around things. Is that serving me? If
Well,
it's not serving me, even if it's a simple word, like a long time ago, I realized that word addict, alcoholic, I did not like those words. Was not going to constantly imprint those on my body. That wasn't part of my identity, and I didn't want it to be. So changing the words around it. It allowed me to start to change my own story. I had no idea where it was going to take me. And now I'm sitting here with two other quantum ladies in the presence of good company all around me in my life. That just and it all started with just something small, some small awareness. And it will just like all these small awarenesses just snowball. And your story is a perfect example of that, of what you've been sharing with us is all your awarenesses have snowballed into this beautiful orchid.
the thing, right? I have to embrace that orchid. Not well,
Yes.
because the thing, the victim me would be like, oh, that's not good, right? It's weak, it's fragile, da da da. The non-victim me, because I worked a lot on that whole victim awareness, right? Is that no, 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 this is I'm glad that I look at this. It's like a gift, right? I get to nurture myself. I get to make sure that I'm taking good care of myself. I do what I can. I had to work a ton of that on that victim consciousness. So, but spelling, like you're saying, Andy, it's like spelling, words are spells. You're literally casting a spell. That energy is going out into the universe and coming back like a boomerang to you. So be careful what you speak. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And the earlier when you were talking about like the energy around us and it's being reflected, like manifestation, if you will, that is the law of transmutational energy, or the law of thinking, or law of assumption. That law has a bunch of names, but we are our thoughts, and it is
Yep.
bouncing back, and we do manifest the things. We just don't see it in the 3D yet.
Exactly. Exactly.
We can't say I'll believe it when I see it. It's the opposite.
Yes.
I'll see it when I believe it.
And this is our journey of the awareness and the consciousness, right? So
Yeah.
I like to hang out there. I'm kind of a newbie in that area of consciousness, but it's really
Me too.
so cool, so
It,
fascinating.
it is so
I
fascinating.
I've been playing in this in the access consciousness bars realm, and also one I'll just share this because it was a cool thing that happened to me. I took Robin Sharma's Hero Legend Genius course a while back, and he had us journal how we were playing the victim. And
Mhm.
just to look at all the different, and so it was amazing what came out on the paper, and I keep alluding to this, little minor chocolate addiction. It was like, where am I playing the victim? The chocolate, like, you can't get over it. Change that, just it's just interesting the different things. But Heather, one question, I've heard you talk about you would like to inspire people to express their humanity. Could you explain what you mean by that?
Well, like I said in the beginning of the show before we were on air, that quantum biology restores your health because it restores your humanity. to the extent that you can take in love and nourishment, right, and develop a secure relationship with yourself, you will become fully into your own self and humanity, and like your authentic self is how I think of it. Yes, because we cannot see ourselves if we don't have the energy, if we don't have the safety that we need. We're always going to be in a struggle, we're going to be reacting, we're going to be deficient that way. So we need to have the wherewithal, because let's be honest, it's really hard to face stuff, right? Most people would rather not. That's why we have addiction. Most people would rather focus on anything else than what happens in their bodies. Like when I was doing therapy and I had people sitting in a chair and I was doing a combination of EMDR and somatic experiencing as a fusion. The trainer that I had was trained in both, created this lovely model where I'm tapping on their knees and I'm really just redirecting them to focus on their bodily sensations the whole time and then reflecting back to them what they say without me trying to add any of my own stuff, nothing. Like I'm not interpreting, I'm not like, oh, I was like supposed to be super neutral. And you would not believe how quickly people were like, oh my God. And like all this emotion would start coming up. And then what do? They clench, right? And it just stays right here, right here. So the thing is that in our bodies, there's always truth of everything. Like I believe our bodies are the portal and the exchange, or what's the better word, you guys, but like between all that is out there and who we are. Like it's all there. So the people would ask rhetorical questions like, oh, why is this happening for me? I always would, the way I was trained, brilliant, this guy was so good, is so good. He would say, have them ask themselves that question. Well, now we're in a whole different ballgame, aren't we? And guess what? I believe we always know. We always know. Your body will, and your body basically, like, that's what I think is your higher self. It will offer up to you this knowing that you don't want to be with. And that's why I'm here right now. I knew that I wasn't in an optimal relationship, but so many things were good about it. And, fundamentally a good person. And I, sometimes it was great, but there was a lot that I was enduring and a lot that I knew I was missing out on. That's all on me, not anyone else, right? So I felt like the more committed I was to my own healing, to feeling good, to nurturing myself, to creating a community of women, to having tons of forgiveness and self grace, right? The more that it was shown to me the road, the path that I need to take. And then things fell into place where it was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I had to do a hard no, like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And my body said, it was not my head. It was like, my body was like, no, we're done. Packed it up and moved in 6 months. And now I'm in a different 2 states away, in a totally new town, a totally new house.
How are you doing?
And my dog. Great. It's been 3 weeks. I know my best friend's like, well, you don't have any friends there. You don't really know anyone. I'm like, yeah, I know the roommate. It's my dad's best friend who was helping my dad with his health issues for the last 10 years is still living in the basement. I'm like, great. Can I help me? So here's the thing, you guys, I want to make this really clear. What I knew is that I needed to be able to be by myself and thrive, because I moved out a couple times during this 19-year stint when things felt too much for me, but I did not thrive. The first time I really was off. That was I was really bad off, because I had so much of that trauma still in there.
Was that the trip to
That's
Mexico?
when the chronic fatigue happened. No, that was later. So the chronic fatigue happened and I was super depressed. Like I was pretty suicidal, anxious, like, just like total victim, blah, blah, blah. And here I had to have all my energy just to go through my clients as best I could, right? It was really hard. And so I survived. I started coming out of that, and then, things got better, and blah, blah, blah. The saga continues. The second time when I was in Mexico, I'm like, I'm moving to Mexico because that's what I want to do. The beginning of the thing that happened, And so I did that.
2020?
Mhm.
2020? Okay.
I did that, and I was down there for 4 months, and that was like I could have figured it out, right? Because I wanted to do something different. This time it's like everything's changing, and I'm done, and that, hard line in the sand, and now I'm taking care of me. So I knew that I could do that, but everything had to align for me to be able to do that. My health, my women's community, my knowing the space that my dad left here for me, which is interesting, right? Because that attachment was very compromised And he never literally gave me anything. And then he leaves me in the house. It's like, how interesting is that, right? So
How
all of
interesting.
these things combining to help me receive. That's really what it's about.
Oh,
Because what do we do when we've been neglected? I don't need anything. I'm fine. That's a coping strategy that's very, very damaging. And so now I'm like, I'll receive it all. It's all good, right? And now I'm here with me and I'm can take care of myself and I'm not lonely because guess what? I have me and a lot of books. So
Heather, we have this homeopathy course in common. I'm just I haven't really opened it up to clients yet. I don't know where you're at, but I'd love to ask that. But also, has homeopathy played a part in that?
yeah, thank you so much, Laura, because I forgot to mention that. I took
Right.
what our Heather, our trainer, I've been seeing her, she prescribed Natmer for grief, right?
Yes. Well, obviously, a lot of grief there, right?
Oh yeah. Well, no, and I'm still going to be working on that, right? Because it's been survival, survival, survival. Now it's like, okay, we have the safety now to feel more. So
Mhm.
that'll happen. I'm not like, okay, on Monday,
Mhm.
so it will organically happen. That's how I roll. But I needed things to be this way before I could really do that deeper work, like deep, deep work.
You were.
But that's what happened. And I have to thank her and I keep forgetting to talk to her about it because I haven't scheduled a follow-up. But the interesting thing is with Nat Mur, there's the grief, but also we joke about it in our training. It's like, then you leave your partner. It's one of our classmates did. It's like, but that needed to happen. It was all very amicable and, he helped me move in the whole thing. I mean, we have a good relationship. So, but that, Laura, is what helped me connect down into my knowing is the homeopathy. The homeopathy is what really energetically also fortified me, right? Because it's a quantum medicine to say, I'm doing this and this is what's going to be now.
I've witnessed your, hinting that you were going to do this and then watching you follow through. And now you're talking to us from this new state and new house and huge smile on your face. And you have a lot of people behind you too, in this
Well, that's the
journey.
thing. I needed that with the
Yeah.
attachment issues I had. Now I have healthy friend attachments and support.
Yeah.
Which before I
Yeah.
was trying to do it with just with some loose therapist, kind of friends and colleagues, but it was different. I wasn't able to take in nourishment, so I wasn't able to have the kind of friendships I needed. Right?
Mm. Yeah. And I mean, I just want to highlight that we haven't mentioned it yet, but you do have a podcast, The
Mhm.
Quantum Connection, and Andy and I are huge fans of it and
Thank
never miss an ep.
you.
Well, I'm a little behind actually. I've never been behind yet, but I'm a little behind right now. But I've been having far too much fun.
Busy.
Yeah, but certainly we're watching this beautiful friendship with you and Vanessa, your co-host, develop as well. Just beautiful. So, anything. So I want to ask you about things that you can offer, you are offering. So one is the podcast. So if there's anything you want to share about the podcast with us, maybe I guess just one quick question on it. Have you had any guests in particular or just insights? How has that growth been for you with the podcast?
I think it's
Has it
been
been part of the growth?
extraordinary. It's been extraordinary because we have basically organically grown it, right? And we don't
Mhm.
have a lot of strategizing yet. I think that's going to come. It's been absolutely amazing to be in that space because I never would have ever thought I would be doing that kind of thing before. I
Mhm.
never would have envisioned me doing something like that, right? With how much shame I had about just speaking my truth. Like, and
Yeah.
it's okay if I don't know everything. Oh no, before it's like I had to figure it all out and sound like I have everything that I need to know understood. It's like, oh well, I don't, and that's fine.
You honestly listening to you on this podcast, Heather, you come across wise and intelligent and very knowledgeable.
Well,
So,
thank
and
you.
yeah, yeah.
But see, knowing more had been one of my coping strategies, Laura, and I'm divesting from that. Like it's okay not to know whatever, right? Do I like it? Sure. But I want to do it from a place of love and curiosity versus like, oh my God, I have to figure this out because otherwise I'm not safe. There's a very big difference. And that's what I used to do. I will learn it when it feels good. And then I will remember it because what happens when I'm in this like, oh my God, I need to know more. So I feel valid, like I'm a good enough human and people are
Mhm.
gonna whatever look to me this way or want to hire me. That I can't remember it all because I'm in a state of fear. So
Mhm.
it has to be more of I'm open, I'm calm, I'm embracing, I'm retaining the knowledge. because it's safe to. So, but thank you so much. I really appreciate your kind words.
Oh, no,
Um,
it's so, so true. Okay, I've got more questions. I don't know how our time is, but
So
one
yeah,
of the
we're
we're
coming
coming to the end.
close.
Here's what I have to offer.
Yeah, please tell us.
Well, if somebody wants to work with me individually, like in a container of say, 3 months, we can work that out. I don't have anything hard and fast right now. I'm going to develop that once I get settled here.
Mhm.
So, but that's what I'm leaning towards
Okay.
versus having a community and, trying to have guests and put all this information there. I really feel in my body that what I like to do is the I thou experience experientially, right? So I can help somebody with whatever their energetic needs are. It's more about like, let's elevate your vibrational frequency, your vibrations and frequency, right? So
Yeah.
we will do the quantum foundation and then we'll see what's going on. Because I do think our symptoms are here to pave the way for us. They're not a problem. They show up in us what needs to change.
Mhm.
So we'll then look at what symptoms remain after you have your quantum foundation of the quantum biology. Now let's look at the emotional realm, right?
Oh, I love that so much, Heather. I
Thank
love
you,
that.
Andeea. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Okay, we have a question we like to ask. This is the
Our
last
signature
one.
question.
Ooh, what is it?
Does quantum healthy mean to you?
Quantum healthy?
Yeah, in a nutshell.
I think quantum healthy means you're living a pleasure-filled, high-voltage life.
Oh, I love it. I love that. Short and
Oh
sweet
man.
too.
Yes.
Man, we're gonna embody that. We're
Good.
gonna work on embodying that.
Oh.
Good. Great.
And can people find you, Heather? Is it still Enlightened Mood?
Yep. My website is enlightenedmood.com.
Okay, and on Instagram?
Yeah, I don't even know. Let's check.
It could be Enlightened Mood too.
What is it though? That's so funny. I can't remember. So my Instagram is just Heather Crimson.
I was gonna say I thought it was your name.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
you beat me to it.
But I don't know how, you were posting quite a lot before. I don't know how busy you've been, really busy moving and a lot of changes.
So I did, what I did is the first time in my life, I said, I'm not going to stress out about, was it stressful? Yes. And then, I got sick like the week I was moving, the last week before takeoff. I'm like, oh my
Sure.
gosh.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I called it a purge, whatever. But the first time in my life that I did this as slowly as possible, I had 6 months. I had plenty of help. I had all the time. I hardly worked at all compared to the 30 years before. And it was like, I'm gonna do it my way.
The easy,
Selfish.
soft way.
I'll
The
get out.
effortless way.
Yeah, because that's what I needed to do to make it manageable for myself.
Mhm.
That's why I haven't been posting, and thank God Vanessa does what she does, because that's the only way I would be showing up on social media. Will I make more appearances? Yes, yes, yes. But the thing is I want to share from that place of feeling lit up about something, from feeling inspired versus,
Yes.
oh my God, I have to
Organic.
post. I even posted. It's like, no, I'm not gonna live like that anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I
no,
still
agreed.
feel like a lot of your posts have been organic though. Like it's like I got a thought, I got an idea, capture it, get
Yeah.
it out there. And I've really enjoyed a lot of your posts over the last, I guess it's 3 years that I've known you. But it's been part of my learning because the whole mental health space is not really my strength. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Yes,
Any
thank
last
you.
parting words of wisdom?
I think that the main thing is you have to connect to the outside world through nature to be able to connect to yourself, which will then lead you to connect to others. This is how it has to be. You have to have all of them. That's it.
It's triangle.
Mhm.
All
It is.
Amazing.
right. Thank you so much for being here, Heather. And
Mhm.
yeah, we'll see everybody next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Quantum Healthy podcast. We hope you found some value in this information. And if you feel inspired, please share it and leave us a 5-star review. This will help us reach so many more people. If you want to connect with Laura, you can find her at laurakissmanwellness.com and Andeea at andeearay.com. Links are below in the show notes. Now, go find some sunlight and embrace your own quantum healthy.